Good evening. Pastor Sean here from Ascension Lutheran Church in East Lansing, Michigan, with your midweek Bible study. We are continuing our journey through the book of Isaiah. We're at chapter 41 tonight, so we're making good progress. Just encourage you to ask whatever questions that might come up, anything that you need clarification on, any insights that you might have that, if I'm talking about something and you see something that I don't mention, bring it up. Please, by all means, use the live chat, and it'll help this be more engaging. So I see some people are already online. Good evening. So yeah, I guess we're just going to jump right in. So we are in, I guess the background here. So chapter 41, we did chapter 40 last week, and as I mentioned, that beginning with chapter 40 is kind of the second section of Isaiah. The I guess it's not technically half, but the second portion of it, where the focus of what Isaiah is talking about shifts from the beginning. The first part of Isaiah is dealing with contemporary issues of the threat of Assyria, and now with and we're going to see how this plays into it tonight. With Isaiah is now referring to the threat of Babylon, which is still 150 years off into the future. So Isaiah is not going to see this. The people who he's delivering this message to, at least in his lifetime, most likely won't be around when Babylon becomes the major threat. So this is a prophecy of the future, but also a pointing ahead to Jesus in so very many ways and the fulfillment of God's deliverance. So it's just using the coming Babylonian exile to show how God is going to deliver, comfort, bear with, and deliver his people. Sound good? Cool. All right. Well, if you pop in, say hi, so I know there's people here. So I'm just going to assume there is. All right. Isaiah 41. Let's see what we got here. There we are. Verses 1 through 4. Listen to me in silence, O coastlands. Let the peoples renew their strength. Let them approach. Let them speak. Let us together draw near for judgment. Who stirred up one from the east, whom victory meets at every step? He gives up nations before him, so that he tramples kings underfoot. He makes them like dust, and with his sword, like driven stubble with his bow. He pursues them and passes on safely, by paths his feet have not trod. Who has performed and done this, calling the generations from the beginning? I, the Lord, the first, and with the last, I am he. All right, so last chapter we were focusing on Isaiah delivering a message of hope to the people of God, hope to those who trust in the Lord. And now, in chapter 41, we're going to kind of bounce back and forth between audiences. But here, basically what we have here is God kind of speaking to the nations, the unbelieving nations, to those people who do not believe in him. And so basically what we... And it'll become a little bit more clear as we go through this. But what we have here is basically God... speaking to the nations, saying like, and he sets the scene. He says, "Hey, look, listen to me. Okay, I'm going to bring something up here." He says, renew your strength, approach me, let us speak. So he's kind of inviting the nations to come to him to engage in a discussion, and really it's going to be kind of a debate. He's going to ask them some questions, and imagine like a courtroom setting. Okay, with God presiding over court, and so now he's calling these nations to make their arguments for whatever it happens to be. So he asks them a question. He says, who stirred up one from the east whom victory meets at every step, and so on. And what he's saying is, okay, there's one rising from the east. There is one who is just going around. He's on a warpath. He's conquering every nation. He tramples kings underfoot. So basically the nations see that there's this power, this individual who has been risen up in the east, and he is just kicking butt and taking names. And so the question that God presents to them is, who stirred him up? Who is the one who appointed him? Who is the one who brought this one up, who conquers? Okay? And that's the premise that kind of leads into this whole thing. So, and of course the answer, he asks the question as if to say, like, are you guys in charge? Are you guys the one who propped this guy up, or who support this guy in his conquering, or someone else? And he says, it is I. In fact, he uses his name. He says, I, the Lord, I, Yahweh, the first and with the last, I am he. I am the one who has performed this, calling the generations from the beginning. So it's kind of a rhetorical kind of question. Now, in this chapter, we don't get immediately the identity, or clearly the identity of who this one is. And there are various ideas and arguments about who it might be. But honestly, given the context and basically everything else, I think it becomes pretty clear later that who he's referring to is Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great, who was the founder of the Persian Empire, who was the ruler of Persia, reigning, I think he's in 559 BC. He is the one who rose up and conquered all the surrounding lands. I mean, the Persian Empire just exploded with him, and they became the mega power in the area, and they just conquered everything, including Babylon in 539 BC. Okay, and Cyrus is the one, actually, who will conquer Babylon, and then release an edict that declares that the Jews may leave Babylon and go back to Jerusalem, go back to Judah, and resettle and rebuild. So Cyrus the Great is going to be the great deliverer, essentially. He's going to release the Jews from bondage in Babylon. Okay, and you gotta understand that, so this is Isaiah talking about Cyrus the Great, who will release the captives from exile. At the time Isaiah is writing this, Babylon is nowhere near the superpower that it will become. Okay, Babylon is not even on the radar yet. They will rise to power, and then they will come in, they'll conquer, they'll destroy Jerusalem and the temple and all that, take all the Jews in exile. But at this moment, they're not that. So you gotta love how God is speaking through Isaiah here, and already pointing ahead to the salvation that he's going to bring through this Cyrus the Great, to a people who certainly aren't born yet, before the threat's even there, before the threat is even in existence. He is declaring and specifying the salvation and the deliverance that he is going to bring. So it's quite striking that he sends this message. Because, to the people of Isaiah's time, they'd be like, okay. It makes no sense to them. Because if he's talking about Cyrus, then Cyrus isn't even alive yet. It means nothing to them, really, except that God is telling them that there is one who he is going to raise up to be his Messiah, his anointed one, which is what he will refer to Cyrus as Cyrus, my Mashiach, my Messiah, meaning that he anoints Cyrus to deliver his people back to their home. Now, Cyrus was not a believer of Yahweh. He was a pagan, but he would do what God wants him to do. He will walk in the paths that God has laid out for him. So this is just kind of an introductory way of saying God is in control and is going to be, and that's it. And especially as he's presenting it as a debate or a call to these other nations to come have a lively discussion with him, it's already setting the stage where God is already, 100 steps in front of you. You are so far behind from where God is that he's there's no point in even debating with him. He's so far ahead. Hey, Paul's online. All right. Hey, Paul. And I assume Pam as well. Good to see you. All right, so that sets the stage for the rest of this chapter here. All right. Oh, any questions about that? Those first four verses, about Cyrus, anything like that? Trying to remember to give plenty of opportunities to break and ask questions. I just did a Bible study for the deacon conference, and I did take questions. I did take anybody who wanted to comment, but I was just like blazing through it as quickly as I could because I had a lot of material to cover. All right, doesn't look like there's any questions, so let us continue. Verses 5 through 7. The coastlands have seen and are afraid. The ends of the earth tremble. They have drawn near and come. Everyone helps his neighbor and says to his brother, "Be strong." The craftsman strengthens the goldsmith, and he who smooths with the hammer him who strikes the anvil, saying of the soldering, "It is good." And they strengthen it with nails so that it cannot be moved. So, this is just kind of fun. So the vision that Isaiah is given here, that of God calling the nations to answer. In this vision, the Cyrus, the conqueror, is already doing his thing. He's already out there, taking over stuff and conquering. So the coastlands, so all the nations have seen and they're afraid. They see the conqueror. They see Cyrus the Great rising to power, and they're fearful. They're like, uh-oh, this guy means business. So what do? Of course, they don't turn to God. Why would they do that? So they turn to one another. So everyone helps his neighbor. So all these nations who are not believers of God, they turn to one another to come up with some kind of mutual strategy. So they come together. They encourage one another to be strong. Says to his brother, "Be strong." And then talks about this craftsman strengthens a goldsmith, yada, yada, yada. They create idols. So they get together, they see this threat. Yahweh has called them to, and is pointing this out to them. He's like, yeah, you see this guy? Oh, what are you going to do? Huh? Which the answer should be, oh, we trust in you, Yahweh. Deliver us. No, they turn to each other and they build idols. They go to the goldsmith and the one who strikes with the hammer and all this other and strikes the anvil. They devise idols. This is their response to God, is to create their own. And the funny thing about this, I mean, there's real good comedy here, is they create these idols to create their false gods to pray to appeal to, so that these false gods would protect them, would provide some kind of protection. They look at it and they say, it is good, which mocks or mimics Yahweh creating the universe. So Yahweh creates the universe. Okay, he creates everything. Lights, plants, life, everything. Stars in the sky. All of creation he makes, and he looks at it and says, "It is good." The unbelieving nations, they cobble together their little idols, or big idols, whatever, idols. They sit back and they say, yes, this is good. But then what do they have to do? They strengthen it with nails so that it cannot be moved, or so that it cannot be toppled. So basically, they think they've got a great plan to make these idols that they can trust in, and yet they have to secure them with nails so they don't fall over. Which just speaks to the never-ending stupidity of human beings. That we, rather than trusting in God, or trusting in Yahweh, we would rather create our own idols, create our own gods, that are dependent on us to secure them to the ground so they don't fall over and break. Which, is that it's supposed to be funny. I mean, it's a comedic little thing here. The picture that we're giving, and it's certainly something that we can reflect on in ourselves. I mean, we create idols all the time. One of the biggest idols we have is money. And that the thing about, so we create money as an idol, set money as our God. And we think, if we just have enough money, then our God will take care of us, right? Money will take care of us. You have enough, you'll be able to buy whatever you want. You can provide security, shelter, all that you need, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, you have to work really hard to get that money. Yeah. So you have to work really hard for this God you create. So you've created a God to save you, but you have to do all the work to get the money, which is your God. So what is the God doing? I mean, you're doing all the work. um, so we set up these idols that are dependent on us. And truly, when you get down to it, the idol is truly our own hearts, ourselves. We have made ourselves gods and saying we are the masters of our fate. We are the ones who decide how our lives are going to be. So it's a very sad state of affairs that we find ourselves in. And that is exactly the state of affairs that the nations find themselves in when they see this guy Cyrus rising to power and just going through town, just burning everything down and taking over. So it is a very terrifying moment for them. All right. Verses 8 through 10. But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the offspring of Abraham, my friend, you whom I took from the ends of the earth and called from its farthest corners, saying to you, you are my servant, I have chosen you and not cast you off. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Now, the focus here switches to from the unbelieving nations now back to Israel. Because Israel, the people of God, are right there alongside them. They see Cyrus being raised up and conquering. Now, given what the whole context of this, these are the Jews who are living in Babylon. Okay? But still, they see Cyrus rising to power, and, they think, well, I mean, yeah, Cyrus is going to conquer, and what's to become of us then? They've already been taken over by Nebuchadnezzar and exiled by him. So they've already been conquered once, and now here comes another conqueror, so they're going to be conquered a second time. They're not even in their home, so God only knows what's going to happen to them now. So they're terrified too. And so what we have in these 3 verses here are just, it's just dripping with comfort and God trying to reassure his people. And you just see with the language he uses, so, but you, Israel, my servant Jacob, whom I have chosen, the offspring of Abraham, my friend. The fact that he calls them Israel and Jacob, these are special names, because Israel is what God named. He renamed Jacob. That was his after Jacob wrestled with him, he named him Israel. So by using the names Israel and Jacob, he's referring to the Jews and recalling, or having them recall, I've been with you this whole time. I've been with you since the very beginning. He's like, we have history. We go way back, you and me. I have chosen you. You are the offspring of Abraham, my friend. So you are the offspring of my friend Abraham. So you are friends of God. I took you from the ends of the earth and called you. I called you to me. I said, you are my servant. I've chosen you. I have not cast you off. Fear not, I am with you. Don't be dismayed. I am your God. I'll strengthen you. I'll help you. I'll uphold you. This is just awesome comfort. You go back to chapter 40. Comfort my people. This is the comfort. This is Isaiah delivering comfort to his people, saying, look, this is your God. He's been with you since the beginning. He's been with you through the generations, way before any of you were born. He was with you. He was doing everything for you. So do not be afraid. Do not lose heart. Do not fear when you see these things, because God is there. He will strengthen you. He will help you. He will uphold you. This is huge. This is beautiful. This is gospel right here. He thinks that the Old Testament is all law and the New Testament is all gospel. Boom, gospel right here. All right, is it a comment here? Is it given that he's talking to Judah as well? Yeah. Yes. When Yeah, it's kind of, it can be kind of fuzzy sometimes because there's the people of Judah and the people of Israel in terms of the kingdoms, the southern kingdom of Judah, northern kingdom of Israel. So by this time, the people who he's talking to, Israel, even in Isaiah's time, it was destroyed. And Syria had taken them off into exile. So the kingdom of Israel was scattered. All the tribes who are a part of that were scattered to the wind. So now, really, all you have that he's talking to here are the exiles from Judah. Okay, so he still calls them Israel. So and that's kind of a big deal too. I mean, actually, that's a good point. Is that yes, he's speaking to the people of Judah in exile, but he calls them Israel because Israel is the name of his chosen people. Israel is the name that he renamed his people to as a sign of his covenant for them, as there's promise, all this stuff. So the fact that he calls Judah Israel is in itself a big deal and shows that he has not forsaken them. He has not forgotten them. So that's actually a very good thing to point out there. So thank you. Because when you hear Israel and Jacob here, he is talking to the people of Judah. So yes, well spotted. All right. Let's see what we got. 11 through 13. Behold, all who are licensed, all who are incensed against you shall be put to shame and confounded. Those who strive against you shall be as nothing and shall perish. You shall seek those who contend with you, but you shall not find them. Those who war against you shall be as nothing at all. For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not, I am the one who helps you. Again, just more words of comfort and peace for his people. All those who are against you, all of your enemies, will be put to shame. They'll be confounded. They will be as nothing, and they'll perish. For I, Yahweh your God, hold your right hand. I'm right there, holding your hand. It is I who say to you, fear not, I am the one who helps you. Huge comfort, incredible comfort for his people, and certainly for us too. We should hear this text, and of course, how do we see this fulfilled? Because like he's talking to the people of Judah in exile, and so Cyrus is the one who's being raised up to deliver them back into Judah. But we hear this, and we see this as not speaking to just that, but certainly pointing ahead to Jesus, to our deliverance from sin. That this is what Jesus, this is Jesus who promises to hold our hand, to say, fear not, I am the one who helps you. And so when we look at, all those who would be against us, any time you're feeling like, that the world is against you, this person's against you, this whatever group is against you, whatever, whoever it is that is afflicting you, read verses 8 through 13 here of chapter 41, and hear God speaking to you. Hear God speaking to you and referring to Jesus. That, these things that afflict you, they have no power over you. God is going to make them as nothing. Those who war against you shall be as nothing at all. Even if they destroy the flesh, they still haven't destroyed you, because you'll be raised up in Jesus Christ. It's a great, wonderful text. Great comfort, great peace. Good stuff. And then verse 14, fear not, you worm Jacob, you men of Israel. I am the one who helps you, declares the Lord. Your Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. Okay, so a little weird, because it's very effusive, it's very sweet, it's very loving. It's like, you are my people, I have chosen you, very much like, oh, I love you guys. And then it's, fear not, you worm. It's like, okay, so what's that about? Well, Yeah, I think when we hear worm, and especially when it refers to somebody, this is a heavy insult. You know, you're a worm. And it's definitely not flattering. Okay, but first, you know, you got to look at what is a worm. It is small. It is insignificant, easily preyed upon. So with God saying, "Fear not, you worm Jacob, you men of Israel," you know, he's saying like, look, you've got these powers against you; they will not prevail. This great conqueror who you see, who terrifies you, don't worry. You know, I am in charge of all things. So there is a little bit of a call to humility here, saying like, look, Jacob, look, Israel, you are a worm. You are help himself. Okay, a worm is absolutely helpless. So, given the rest of the verse and kind of placing it all together, it's definitely not like a violent or not violent, um, a terribly mean spirited insult. If anything, it's just kind of a little humility, a call to realize, like, look, without God, Israel, you are helpless and you are weak. Okay, trust in me. Um, and we have so declares Yahweh, and notice how your Redeemer in almost every translation is probably capitalized. Your Redeemer, because it's not just Redeemer. There's something more to it. This is like a title, an unofficial title. And the word behind that, the Hebrew word, Redeemer, is the same Redeemer that you find in, say, the book of Ruth, with Boaz, who redeems Ruth, Naomi. Um, uh, and so, I'm sorry, brain just left for a second. It's the same Redeemer. Okay, and so this title of Redeemer had this very special significance and meaning for the people of Israel. A Redeemer was a kinsman, a relative. Okay, so Boaz from the book of Ruth, he was the only one able to redeem Ruth's land, because it was she had lost it, and now he could redeem it. He could purchase it back. He had the right to do it because he was her kinsman. Okay, the redeemer, the kinsman, is responsible for helping those he's connected to. Okay, so God is the redeemer of Israel. He is their kinsman, his family, who rescues them from helplessness, who buys them back, who restores them to what they should be, because they couldn't save themselves. They were dependent on the Redeemer to do that. Okay, and this is what he calls himself, the Redeemer. Is the Holy One of Israel, and the Holy One of Israel is a Isaiah's special title for God. He uses it quite often. So it is kind of a cool thing. So yes, worm, yeah, it's not great. You don't want God calling you a worm, but I mean it's true compared to God. I mean we are as helpless little worms, but never fear, because the Lord is our Redeemer. He is our kinsman. He is our family. He is the one who comes to buy us out of slavery, to purchase us so that we might be restored to what we were supposed to be, what we were always supposed to have, which is all the blessings of God. So, good stuff. There we go. Okay. Verses 15 and 16. Behold, I make of you a threshing sledge, new, sharp, and having teeth. You shall thresh the mountains and crush them, and you shall make the hills like chaff. You shall winnow them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the tempest shall scatter them. And you shall rejoice in the Lord, in the Holy One of Israel you shall glory. All right, so here God is further kind of giving the comfort to his people, saying that you are going to be my instrument of judgment, that you are going to be the ones to cull the ones who are conquering. I will use you to bring my judgment to the world, to the unbelieving world. So not only is God going to restore them and redeem them and set them as like they were before, he's actually going to do better than that. He's going to lift them up. He's going to set them over all things, which is, exactly the promises that we get through Jesus Christ. That we, every tongue will confess, every knee will bow before Jesus, and we will be those who are brought with him, who will be in the high places with him. So yeah, this is very much the same promises that we get in Jesus Christ. God is not only going to redeem us and restore us, but elevate us and bring us into his glory. All right. Maybe I should pause. Any questions, comments so far? Since I think we're in the last 10 verses or so. Or 9, whatever. Or 12. Whatever. Nothing so far, huh? Okay. Then I will keep soldiering through here. Verses 17 through 20. When the poor and needy seek water and there is none, and their tongue is parched with thirst, I, the Lord, will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. I will open rivers on the bare heights and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water and the dry land springs of water. I will put in the wilderness the cedar, the acacia, the myrtle, and the olive. I will set in the desert the cypress, the plane, and the pine together, that they may see and know, may consider and understand together, that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created it. All right, so focusing back on the... Oh, wait. Here we go. So now we've got a picture of... Let's see here. There we go. An image of God's people in captivity. Okay, so looking at the people in captivity, they're thirsty, they're poor and needy. They seek refreshment. They seek to have something to drink, but there's nothing. There's no relief for them. But the Lord will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. And the cool thing is that they're thirsty. So God doesn't say, "Oh, you're thirsty? I'll give you something to drink. I will provide water." God's response to their thirst is so way over the top. I mean, overkill. He's like, "Oh, you're thirsty. Well, now I will open rivers on the bare heights. I will bring up fountains in the midst of valleys. I will flood the whole place with water for you to drink. I will make the deserts lush with trees and plant life, bringing so much water that these huge oaks can grow in the middle of a desert." So the promise that he gives is not just to provide, but to inundate, to provide in abundance. Which, again, this is what Scripture tells us all about Jesus. He comes to give us life and give us life abundantly. This is same thing. What did I? Oh, the little note I wrote here for my notes is. The way God delivers the relief is kind of he does a National Lampoon Christmas Vacation Christmas lights. That's what he does. He doesn't just hang up lights. He covers the house in lights. So yeah, whenever you read this, think National Lampoon's Christmas. There you go. Now, one thing you could definitely look at here is how God promises, he says, like, yes, you will be suffering, you will be thirsting. Again, this is a prophecy of what is going to come to pass. You will be thirsty, and I will bring you relief. Okay. Well, why does God put them in that situation to begin with? You know what I mean? If he's in charge and he's going to make things right, why allow them to be suffering in the first place? Why would you allow that to happen if you're just going to come and fix it later? I didn't read the whole thing, did I? Well, we'll get to that. That'll answer the question. So there's the question. Why would God do this? Okay. No, he did. Okay. Verse 20. That they may see and know, may consider and understand together that the hand of the Lord has done this. The Holy One of Israel has created it. So that all may see. So that people may see and know that it is the God of Israel, the Almighty Yahweh, who does this. And certainly it's not just a capricious kind of thing. The reason why they're exiled is because it's a punishment for their sin, their unbelief, that they turned away from God, they rejected him. And so he said, okay, if you are not going to trust in me, if you're not going to turn to me, then have fun with these guys, because they're coming. Um, he, if we are dead set on our sin, if we are so convinced that we can handle this by ourselves, that we don't need God, that we don't need to trust in Him, God is he does hear our prayers, and He'll answer us. It's just sometimes we don't realize that we are inadvertently praying to God and saying, God, I don't need you. Maybe not with words, but with our thoughts, with our actions. So yeah, and if we lift up a prayer that says, look, God, I can do this on my own, he might just be willing to answer that one and say, yeah, all right, you want to handle this, go for it. And unfortunately, that's, when the consequences of our sin hit, when we have to deal with the fallout of our sinfulness, the way that I look at that is, this is God giving me what I asked for. I mean, I didn't, kneel down and pray like, oh, dear Lord, send me this. But by knowing full well that I shouldn't be doing that thing, that I shouldn't be thinking that thing, whatever, and then doing it, that was me effectively telling God, like, yeah, I'm good with the consequences, God, because I know this is bad, but I still want to do it. And so God says, okay. So yeah, don't... Often when people say, oh, don't worry, God will give you whatever you ask for. It's like, oh, well, might want to be careful what you ask for, and realize you don't always know what you're asking for. So, off my little soapbox. All right, verses 21 through 24. So now we're back to this discussion between God and the nations. Okay, so we're kind of jumping focus a little bit. Now we're back to the original kind of, God is calling them to His courtroom to have them set forth their case. Oh, wait a second. Okay, so there's a comment. This is challenging for me to see. What exactly is challenging to see? Might need to elaborate on that, because... Challenging. I think I want a really specific example. Okay, all right. Should probably read this for people on the video. So the comment is, this is challenging for me to see. I think I want really specific examples, but specific examples of, like, when we reject God. I'm not sure exactly where we're going with this. So this is the one area where, like, a Zoom Bible study might be nice, because you can get that instant kind of feedback. But I think it's that just creates chaos. All right, I think I want really specific examples, but then I overthink it. She says, dude, be patient. Okay. I will take a moment and drink some water and let you spell it out. See, the fun thing is that, this is Heather asking me these questions, and she's upstairs watching this. I'm downstairs doing this live stream, and she's upstairs watching it. And there's about an 8-second delay, so... Okay. Okay, so the comment, so you want specific examples, but then you overthink it. The blessings like the water. What are the springs opening? What kind of things are my consequences? Oh, okay. Well, okay, I see where probably, well, there's two things going on here. The text is just this, what we have in verses 17 through 20. This is God promising relief, promising to deliver them, promising them good things. So I will not forsake you. I will provide the thing to satisfy your thirst. Okay, so in their terms, he was talking about bringing them back to Judah. You know, very concrete. He will allow the exiles to return. For us, when we hear this, well, how does God sees us suffer? He sees that we are thirsty. How does he provide us relief? What does he give us to drink? Well, that is his son Jesus Christ, his blood for us to drink, his flesh for us to eat. So how he answers this to us is that he delivers his son Jesus Christ. So that is the deliverance that he promises us. So yes, he sees us suffering, and so he will deliver Jesus Christ. Now the other part about the consequences, that was a completely separate thing that I brought up just as kind of if you would look at this and ask the question, like, well, then why would God, what, I mean, it's essentially the question of why does God allow suffering? Maybe it's a little bit beyond the scope of, probably beyond the scope of this discussion, because the text only deals with deliverance. That's all he's talking about. The stuff about consequences is something that I brought into it just to, as something to consider. But that's so the consequences I was talking about would be just the consequences of our sin when we bring just when things just kind of blow up in our faces, when it wreaks havoc in our lives. And really that's the thing. So, like, yes, we sin, we choose to reject God, we sin, and the natural consequence of sin is things fall apart, things break, we are afflicted, we suffer, and so to that you would turn to this, and God says, like, yes, I see that you are thirsty, I see that you are suffering, I will open up rivers, I will give you the water, the water of life to drink that flows forever through in the new heavens and new earth. All right, Heather says, put this in today terms. I know that he gives us Jesus, but this balance between suffering and then the rescue. We say we were blessed by God through. Again, I'm not. This might be something that we'll have to talk about later, because I really don't quite get where you're going with this and what the confusion is. Okay. I guess I'm not always sure what comes from God. Everything does. Oh, she gives up. Okay. What comes from God? Everything. Good things, bad things. What we consider bad things. I mean, that's the thing, suffering. The whole question of, why do we suffer? And it's easy to say, like, well, because of our sin. We suffer because of our sin. Well, yeah, definitely. But still, there's nothing that happens that God does not ordain in some sense, either by saying he makes it happen, he causes it to happen, he allows it to happen. He is the one in charge of all things. Okay? And so, that's all things come from God. Now we don't understand that very well because especially when God allows suffering in our lives, that doesn't seem right. We don't like that at all. And we can look at our sinfulness and be like, oh, okay, well, God's definitely punishing me for this. It's like, well, is he? Is this a natural consequence of your sin? But again, yes, he does allow these consequences to happen. We definitely have to acknowledge that God is in charge of all this. But what we get really here is, well, what is the point of our suffering? Well, for us personally, it is to draw us closer to God. Because I mean, the whole problem of sin is that we're rejecting God. We're moving away from him. We're saying, I don't need you. So when God allows suffering into our lives due to our sin, it is not necessarily to punish us, but to show us, like, this is what you're choosing. Okay? By rejecting me and choosing sin, this is what you're choosing. You're choosing death. The wages of sin is death. So he uses that as uses the suffering in order to call us back to him. to draw near to us. And we can talk all about, how our suffering brings us close to Jesus' suffering. He suffered on the cross for us. We suffer. Our suffering draws us to him on the cross. But also a secondary aspect of that would be so that others would see and know. When they see you suffer and then delivered, find comfort and peace through Jesus Christ, then they know that there is, a God who cares for you, who loves you, who would send his son to die for you. So hopefully that addresses what the question was. We'll talk later. All right. Verses 21 through, did I have that? Yeah. 21 through 24. So we're back to the courtroom. Set forth your case, says the Lord. Bring your proofs, says the King of Jacob. Let them bring them, and tell us what is to happen. Tell us the former things, what they are, that we may consider them, that we may know their outcome, or declare to us the things to come. Tell us what is to come hereafter, that we may know that you are gods. Do good or do harm, that we may be dismayed and terrified. Behold, you are nothing, and your work is less than nothing. An abomination is he who chooses you. So back to the nations and their idols, and God says, okay, set forth your case. Bring your idol, and he says, let them bring them. Bring your idols. Bring your gods, and ask them. Have them tell us what has happened in the past and what was the outcome and why. Declare to us what's going to happen. Let your gods speak. Tell us so that we may know that you are gods. Do good or do harm. Do something. God is challenging their idols and saying, like, look, do something, speak. Tell us that you are worth the worship of this people. But they can't say anything. Of course, they're just idols. So God says, behold, you are nothing. Never good when God says you are nothing. And your work is less than nothing. An abomination is he who chooses you. So those who choose idols over God, you've chosen nothing. You've chosen less than nothing. And you make yourself, you condemn yourself before God by doing so. So pretty serious stuff. Verses 25 through 27. I stirred up one from the north, and he has come from the rising of the sun, and he shall call upon my name. He shall trample on rulers as on mortar, as the potter treads clay. Who declared it from the beginning, that we might know, and beforehand that we might say, he is right? There was none who declared it, none who proclaimed, none who heard your words. I was the first to say, Zion, behold, here they are, and I give Jerusalem a herald of good news. All right. So the big thing here is that is interesting, because again, if we're talking about Cyrus here, so I stirred this one up. I stirred this one up from the north. He has come because I have called him. He shall call upon my name. Okay, that's kind of a key thing, because Cyrus is not a believer. But the cool thing about that is that in the edict that he delivers to release the Jews from captivity, he proclaims the name of God, just like Isaiah prophesies. In Ezra chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, and I'll just read a little bit. This is, thus says Cyrus, king of Persia. So this is what Cyrus himself said. Yahweh, he uses God's personal name. Yahweh, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. So there you go. He will, this one who is risen, who is conquering, he will call upon the name of God. He will call upon Yahweh, and he does. And then the rest of it is, who declared it from the beginning? Who has said this was going to happen? Who is the one who has declared that this will take place? Who is the one who has placed all these things that will happen and will make them happen? I was the first. I was the one. God says, I am in charge. I am the one who declares it. There is no other. I am the only one with truth. I am the only one who speaks. This is, again, we're in this courtroom setting with all the nations and their idols, and God is just like, there's nothing to say, because I am the only one who has anything to say. And then verses 28 through 29, but when I look, there is no one. Among these there is no counselor who, when I ask, gives an answer. Behold, they are all delusion. Their works are nothing. Their metal images are empty wind. Exactly what I just said. There's no one who can speak. No one who could stand before God and make their case. Because there's no case to be made. God is God. He is so far above all things. And to stand against him, to stand in opposition to him, it's just, you've got nothing. It's a pointless waste of time. So pretty severe stuff. But and yes, it's very much a message of law for the unbelievers. But again, for the Jews who would be receiving this word, they are in the middle of captivity. They see all the world around them is against them. They're in a place where they worship false gods. False gods surround them. And here comes Yahweh, who says, yes, they're all nothing. They've got nothing to say. I am the only one who has anything to say. And here's what's going to happen. And I've declared it 150 years ago. And look, it is happening exactly as I said it would, because I am the one making this happen. So yeah, it is a great comfort and hope for the people of God. Definitely. All right, the end. That is it for tonight. So, other than the long drawn-out discussion I'll have with Heather upstairs about what I didn't exactly clarify, are there any questions or comments about any of this tonight? I'm not seeing anything. So I'm going to assume that you all understood perfectly. Processing it. Good stuff, right? All right. Well, let me know. Paul says, "Let me know how it goes." Well, if you come, well, yeah, if you when you see me at church tomorrow, you'll probably know. You'll be able to tell. We'll see if I'm in the doghouse or not tomorrow. I don't know. I think I've still got some goodwill here because she did miss me while I was at the conference. So I think I can still capitalize on a little bit of that being missed. That might save me. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Hope this was educational, that you were better understand the text here, and it's just all coming together a bit more, and be able to kind of have this cohesive look at Isaiah by the time we're done. So appreciate it greatly, your time spent with me. Until next week, same time, and we'll get into chapter 42. So have a great rest of your week, and until then, peace be with you.